There are a lot of parallels between the weapons governance and health security governance, especially with regards to the need for innovation. And one of the reasons for that is both weapons governance as well as health security governance are very top-down. So compliance can sometimes become an issue. And one way to go around that is to combine that top-down approach with a bottoms-up approach. For example, what we see in climate governance by engaging people, communities that are affected, reaching out to think tanks, civil society, private sector, engaging them in advocacy, engaging them to make sure that they can keep the leaders accountable to comply with what needs to be done with regards to health security or arms control. I think that's one area of innovation. Another way to look at that is also by ensuring that we collaborate with new partners for these old problems. And for example, the humanitarian sector, both in health space as well as in weapons control space. I think if we collaborate and work with the humanitarian sector, a lot more can be achieved. One of the most important aspects of the New Shape Forum for me has been engaging with different stakeholders and working with people who are not necessarily working in one silo. We had people who work in artificial intelligence, in space program, with climate change and weapons governance, arms control, and chemical hazards, health security. So I think that is the biggest outcome for me is being able to work across sectors, because all of these areas are interlinked. Climate change is known to cause an increase in conflict, and conflict is linked with arms control. Both climate change and conflict are related to epidemics. They are risk factors. So understanding that and working with different people, we can make sure we know how to harness the creative energy of other stakeholders. How do we make sure we engage the civil society more, the way climate change has done? One of the biggest problems we face in weapons governance is how do we mobilize society? We really need a Greta for weapons governance. In fact, we need people to understand that this is going to be a huge problem going forward with, as technology improves and we have more and more weapons of mass destruction. So the most insightful comment, or I would say comments that I heard yesterday were related. The first was from the plenary, which talked about how human stories and humanitarian consequences have power to unlock the deadlock of multilateral governance, especially when it comes to weapons and wars. So I thought that was very interesting. It talked about the power of stories, how we can look at data and we understand data, but actual stories have an immense power. And the other quote was from Mrs. Gabowe in the keynote, where she talked about why are the conversations about war and weapons governance so exclusive when the impact and the effects of war are so inclusive. And I thought that was really powerful quote, because it talked about the importance of reaching out to the people who are actually affected by war, understanding from their perspective, putting ourselves in their shoes, bringing them to the decision-making table. I think that was a very strong message about engaging with the communities that get affected by wars and conflict.